Walter Hammer had quite a few pupils for violin, viola, cello, any of those that group of instruments. He did not teach the bass, but he could have, I'm sure. And I met some of these other students, while we're waiting for our turn to come, and so forth, and made good friends of one fellow that he lived in Rescue, Virginia, which is a funny name for a town, but it's a little fishing village, and literally the only thing there were a couple of houses and a whole lot of fishing boats tied up at these docks. And they would go out in the bay, and you've probably seen them many times out there fishing for whatever they were fishing for. And so I met this fellow who he said, come on over and join our little orchestra. And of course I had a car now.
In Rescue?
In Rescue. So I drove over to Rescue and played with them. And yeah, it was about a 4 or 5 piece, little band, little whatever you call it. But it was fun. And we had a fellow there that didn't play any stringed instrument at all. He was, what was he playing?
The triangle.
No, he was a respectable amateur musician. But we had a nice sounding group. And so, meanwhile, I had met a girl, and I figured she might like to go along, just listen to it, just be nice trip and something to do. And so she started going over with us too. And so I'd ride over there with her, and we got to Rescue. The father of this particular group of fishermen came from Czechoslovakia, and he was a very strict father. And he didn't not like a lot of the American nonsense, as he called it. And so he kept his boys straight. And when I started visiting and brought a girl, he did not like that. He didn't tell him no, or didn't tell me that, because I was.
You weren't, yeah.
Yeah, because they weren't their girlfriend, but I was the one bringing them. But he didn't like it, and he made that known to me. So anyway, that was an interesting thing for a while, and then they asked me if I would like to have a job on the ship. Well, it was basically a ship. It was small, but it was a ship.
One of their fishing ships.
Well, this was a buy boat. A buy boat goes to a certain places, certain docks, and they buy the fish that the smaller fishermen. This is a big ship. I'm not meaning a big ship, about as long as this, from that window to the other. So it was that size. And it got loaded with oysters. Man, they had more oysters and real big, juicy, delicious oysters. Oh, that was. So they asked me if I would work as a cook, because they didn't have anybody to cook. And the reason they didn't was because this guy's brother, who had been doing the cooking, had now gotten a job with the patrol, the patrol boat that patrols the waters and makes sure that everything's legal.
So you moved up to a better boat.
Moved up to a better job.
Yeah.
And they didn't have anybody to, but he still came there, and they had a regular cook, but they didn't have anybody for the weekend. So they asked me if I'd fill in, but
So were you still doing the auto body work during the week? I mean, not auto body work,
not on the
certainly
weekend.
Mechanic, but not on the weekend. So you're still working at
my
the
job was
cars.
as a mechanic.
Mechanic.
But this time I was no longer
An apprentice.
an apprentice. I was a mechanic. So, but anyway, so I went over there, and we played our little music, and I brought this girl, not the first time, but after a couple, I took her with me, and she enjoyed it too. She didn't play, but she loved to go over
And certainly there were other women in the audience listening
sure.
to yeah.
There were plenty of women around. So it wasn't a big audience, because this was a little bitty town. But they'd have maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 people would come in, and they didn't have a regular auditorium, but they had chairs placed, and everybody was friendly. They could make coffee for you and so. So that was nice.
Very nice.
But then,
So
when
did you take the job on the boat?
oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
not at first, but I did. And then I would be going out on Saturdays because the girl was not going, and stayed with that boat. And it was an all-day job, and then you stayed the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So you had 2 days of work, and you slept on the boat. Well, this gave me a whole new feel for the waterways and the things, and it was a lovely feeling being a working seaman, if you want to put it that way, but a working. And so I got to learn a lot of the waterways, the islands, the various places. Got my turn at steering the boat, you know. And the old man always sat in the house with the wheelhouse. He always sat there. It was his boat.
Mm-hmm.
So were you mainly working the Potomac, maybe the Patuxent and the Rappahannock?
Rappahannock, and we went to several different places, but most of it was over there in I can't think of the name. It was
Did you go across some of the islands over to Tillman and Crisfield and Hooper's Island?
Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. Regular, it was a regular buy boat, and these guys sold their oysters to them, and they got paid, and then these oysters were put. There's a big hole with ice, filled with ice and so forth, and then they were.
Yeah, that's a little north of him, but not far north. That would have been a long day if you'd had to do that.
I don't think we went that far north.
Yes, just like that.
Because they were bringing the oysters down in their boats too.
But the Rappahannock you probably did, because that came out right at Norfolk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, because I once got in a boat that got grounded there. The Coast Guard had to
Oh,
come pick
okay,
us
so
up.
you
So I
know
remember
there.
the Rappahannock.
Anyway, that was a good experience.
So that's the town of Rescue and how it led you from chamber music to much bigger exposure to being on the water.
Well, also it led me to a different type of music, because now instead of just playing classical music, we were playing all kinds of music. We had some hillbilly music. We had a hillbilly fiddler come in and join us one day.
Yeah.
So that was fun. And most of that was played, of course, without any music. It was ad lib, but it was a nice change from the other things.
I bet it was.
I really enjoyed that.